Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid. Uh, take two. So here's the thing. Shout out to the super producer extraordinaire, Mike Ward. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. So here's a lesson, little life hack. There's a reason for the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward. There's a reason for producers for podcasts. And if you ever launch a podcast, if you try and do it without your producer, you might get away with it. But here's the risk. If you don't do the simple stuff that producers do, that producers know, like mic checks, you can record an entire podcast with no sound. And what you find is your brother texting you saying, your podcast has no sound. So this is take two. We switch into a more comfortable shirt. We're winging it like straight from memory. I'm not trying to do the same podcast. So if you somehow got the first one, which I already took down, and you can read lips, congratulations. I think it was pretty good. But we have to have a sense of humor about this because we're just talking about football, right? We're not curing anything, and there's real stuff going on in the world, and today that was especially meaningful because of the team wearing hats and logos for the tragedy that took place in Oxford. That's important to mention that kind of stuff. It's always about perspective, right? I don't take any of this that seriously. I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy engaging with my brother and my friends during the game. I love being a Lions fan. Like, the name of this podcast is not a joke, and it's not meant to be that serious, but it is absolutely true, right? I don't ever struggle to talk about this football team. So we're going to talk about today's game because they got their first win today. But we're also going to, sometimes I have to be realistic, and there are people going through real life stuff. Like, people in Oxford, Michigan right now are going through real life stuff. And it's important that we send prayers to those people and think about what we're doing. And I'm not here to give speeches about any particular topic. The reality is just that there's human beings right now who are dealing with something that no one should ever have to deal with. No parent should ever have to deal with. Friends, children, young people should never have to deal with. And I don't get paid for this. I'm not doing a PSA. I'm just saying, as a human being, send a prayer out for those people. That would be cool. So, but we're going to talk about the football game, the football team, because we got our first win today. And I said we did. I don't like to do that, but they got to win. So the final was 29-27 over the Vikings. And so there's a lot here to think about and dissect, right? Minnesota didn't have Dalvin Cook. They didn't have Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin. They got a list, right? But guess what? So do we, right? We have a list. And so I don't do the injury thing. I don't. They had to play the game. You show up and you play the game with the guys you have. You do your best. And today it was exciting, as they often are. They won on the last play of the game on an improbable minute 50-second drive. It was entertaining, right? It does feel different doing a podcast after a win. I've forgotten what this felt like, but I'm not super giddy. Don't mistake. There's a lot to unpack, and it's not all good. There's some bad stuff that we're going to definitely hit on today, but they got the win. So you can shut up 0-16-1 guy. He's gonna put on a different hat and shift his attention to another really dumb topic that we will touch on. But 0-16-1 guy can stop talking. There's no history here, right? But so there's good, there's bad, and then there's ugly, which is what I call social media. So we're doing a good, bad, and ugly podcast today. I never know what to do. So just something sort of to think about is when people come up and say, I got good news and bad news, what do you want first? It's sort of that thing. I have always been inclined to say, give me the bad news, because I think ultimately the good news later will help me. I'll feel better after the bad news. So go ahead and make me feel bad first, then lift my spirits. I never know what the right answer is. There are people who want good news first. And maybe they want to feel good and they think that'll help them handle the bad news. I don't really know how that works, but I'm a bad news first guy. So we're going to do bad news first. And I'm going to start with at the risk of alienating my cousin Chuck, I did that podcast 3 weeks ago after the Pittsburgh tie, and it was completely dedicated to Dan Campbell. Like I was not happy with him, and stating again, they won the game today. I'm still not happy with him. Right, 2 minutes left in that game. I was prepared to come to this podcast. I was only hoping to record it once, but I was hoping to come to this podcast and ask for Dan Campbell to be fired tomorrow. That's where I was with a minute 50 left in the game, 2 minutes left in the game. And it is not that I disagree with the concept of the 4th and 1 call. We'll get into that because I didn't think it was conceptually a bad call, and that is a call whether to go for it on 4th and 1 is made by the head coach. So I thought that was a good decision by the head coach. I thought the play that was called was a horrible play call by the offensive coordinator. Now, the reality is in our world now, for the last month, that's the same guy. That's my problem. We'll get to it. Game management is the head coach's job, right? And like I said, I was prepared to ask for him to be fired. And I would say that doing one of these jobs is hard. It's difficult. I don't know if hard's the right word. These are full-time jobs. Just there are not a lot of guys who try and do 2 of the jobs because it's really hard to do one, and they're different jobs. Like he most recently worked for Sean Payton, and what I think is that there's this ego thing of he thinks that because he sat at the right hand of Sean Payton, he can do what Sean Payton does. The reality is Sean Payton's been doing this for years. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl ring to attest for it, and he probably wasn't good at it initially. It being play calling. Right. I'm going to try not to harp on it. Yeah, that's not true. Nope. I'm going to harp on it. I still think, and don't get okie doke because we scored 29 points today to think, all our offensive issues are settled. They're not. Our play calling was still really, really bad at times. There were stretches of the game where the play calling was still very, very bad. They had a couple of maybe three and outs. The first 2 possessions of the second half were 3 and outs, and they were 3 and outs because they were bad play calling. Now, I would be honest and sit here and say, Goff missed a guy on the throw. A guy dropped a pass. A guy missed a block. That's not what I'm talking about. And this is the bad. We'll get to the good. I still think the worst thing I saw today was play calling. In fact, they played a pretty decent game, which I'll get to. But the real problem, again, at the risk of repeating a podcast I did 3 weeks ago, is that doing both jobs causes you to do both jobs poorly, minimum average. Because he was probably he was bad at both jobs today. He might have been an average play caller today. The reality is do one of those jobs and do it well. If you want to call plays, be the OC. Don't let somebody else be the head coach. You could be offensive coordinator. But if you're the head coach, be the head coach. Delegate the responsibility to the very talented and experienced offensive coordinator you have on staff. And if that's not Anthony Lynn, I'm okay. Should have fired Anthony Lynn a month ago and given the responsibility to Staley. Let somebody else be the running backs coach. Giving it to Mark Brunell, let somebody else be the quarterbacks coach. My point is trying to do both of these jobs is resulting in you doing both of these jobs at less than optimal level. That's actually the point. And don't be fooled by 29 points today. Minnesota was missing a lot of dudes. I named them. And all this, the first 10 minutes of this podcast has been largely negative, and we won, right? I'm not unhappy. We won. But truthfully, I think we should have 4 wins now, maybe 5. And the reason we don't is a situation that still exists. I've heard some people call him out on it, but I don't know that it's going to change. And it's not about wins and losses because I don't care about wins and losses this year. Wins and losses don't matter this year. I don't. I think that he is making bad game management decisions on Sunday for 3 hours because he's not fully dedicated to his actual job of head coach. He's trying to do a second job, and it takes away. There's no way you can't. You get the dumb timeout call before halftime. Why do you make that call? Now, I don't think it ultimately bit you. But why? You helped them. Why? What was that? You were thinking, we're going to try and get the ball back? Is that what you were thinking? I don't know. The delay of game penalties, I believe that is the communication between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback in his helmet And I think it's coming late. I think it's coming confused. Something's happening there that is causing them not to get plays off. That's on the OC, who happens to be the head coach. I won't blame him for the wasted timeouts as a result of disorganized defenses that don't. Now, those timeouts almost bit you today. They almost bit you today. But two, 3 and outs on those first 2 possessions of the second half, that goes to play calling. Right. But it's not all him. So okay. I did my bad thing is I'm still salty that Dan Campbell's calling plays. I'm salty about the arrogance of him thinking he could do both jobs. I'm salty at the horrible leadership and basically throwing Anthony Lynn under the bus as though he was the reason they were 0-8. And now you're 1-2-1. So you're significantly no, the defense gave up 16, 13, and 16 the previous 3 weeks, and you did not win any of those games. So, but the players did some things too. Okay, enough for the coach. Not enough. I'm going to probably come back. I'll probably come back to that. But, I think that when I have an opinion and I wonder if I'm right or if I'm being emotional or whatever, I will reach out to other people. And I often reference people on this podcast. It's mine. I can do it. So I talk about my cousin Chuck. I talk about my friend Art. I talk about my brother Kenny. All agree. all agree. So it could just be that emotional fan thing in us that's happening, because that does happen. But I feel like I have 12 data points, 12 sample sizes. And I'm not asking for the guy to get fired after a win. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. Right. And the first 2 games, I think they should have won if they didn't, Minnesota and Baltimore earlier. Those are probably more player losses. I feel like there were times when they didn't make plays. Well, no, they committed penalties and they dropped passes and they missed blocks that they self-destructed. Those first 2 losses, I think, were self-destruction losses. Quite frankly, the tie and the previous 2 losses, I think, were all on the coach. So they're better than they appear to be. And that's a good thing that I'll get to later. It's going to work out. And I'm not sure if it's good or bad. There are those who will tell me specifically now, having 2 or 3 more wins is not a good thing. Okay, that's kind of nonsensey, but whatever. There are people who think differently. But the players did their part. They played a pretty clean game, but there were like 2 or 3 things that stood out. The bootleg was killing them, just killing them all day. Goff made a huge mistake, right? The one big mistake was the interception in the fourth quarter, up to 8 minutes left. You can't throw that pass. That pass was in the double coverage. That was a bad decision. And you can't throw that. You had played a really clean game to that point. And by clean, I don't mean he made every pass. By clean, I meant he generally went to the right places with the football. You will have some low throws, some high throws, because he's getting hit and he's getting pressured. But until that interception, he played clean, and he made up for it. He made up for it on the last drive. I think that Amani had an interception, man, that you got to make that play. It's 20-6 in the middle of the third quarter, and you can put it might be the nail in the coffin, but you intercept that in their territory, you go up 27-6, middle of the third, the game's probably over, right? So that was an opportunity to change the momentum or continue the momentum of the game. But if that's the worst, I'm in the bad section, and all I can talk about is one bad throw by Goff, a dropped interception, and maybe the propensity for your defensive ends to crash down on every play action. You can clean that up. All those things can be cleaned up. Amani probably makes that play next time. Goff probably doesn't make that throw next time. And any team they face going forward that does any bootleg action, they've got to look for those cues, because today they were getting killed with that. But I want to talk about the 4th and 1 call late, but I'm still torn. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I don't know that it was a bad decision. I think I said earlier, yeah, I don't think it was a bad decision. I think it was a bad call. It was a bad play. I think it was a bad play. I think you could have done something a little more misdirection. I think you could have, have Goff run some kind of boot action. You don't have to be super fast. If everybody thinks Jamal Williams is getting the ball and you just tuck it, you can't get to the outside. I'm even fine with a sneak play. No, they tried to sneak play. That's the one where they should have handed it off. I don't. I don't like the call. You know, and that's the thing. I have a real problem with Dan Campbell, the offensive coordinator, and I got to make this podcast broader than that. All right, that's enough of the bad stuff. Let's get to some good stuff. So good. So going into the season, the conversation was around three things. I said very specifically, don't care about wins and losses. Don't care about wins and losses. I'm going to try not to talk about wins and losses. What I cared about was development of young players. I wanted to see all pre-injuries, right? I wanted to see if Jeff Okudah grew and got better. I wanted to see if Quintez Cephas got better. I wanted to see the draft choices. I wanted to see what St. Brown was, and we got a glimpse. I wanted to see what Derek Barnes. I wanted to see Sewell get comfortable on the right side. I wanted to see like young players get better. I want to see where Jamar Jefferson was. Right? We wanted to see others, and Lee McNeil and Levi Onwuzurike, who are getting minutes up front on the defensive line and contributing. I wanted to see the development of young players. Players, how do they look in week 10, 11, 12 versus 1 and 2? Second thing, I wanted to see the development of the young head coach, of the new head coach. How is he coaching, like I said, later in the year versus early? Did he learn some lessons? And then the third thing was we have to figure out what Jared Goff is. And so when I think about those three things, I'm happy about the first one. I am not happy about the second one, and I'm not unsure of the third one, right? I don't know yet what Jared. And there are people who are disagreeing. They're like, we know what Jared Goff is. He's a bum, whatever. I just don't agree with that. It's not a horrible take. There's evidence that you could look at and say he's not the guy. There will not be a team competing for a division title or a playoff run where Jared Goff's the quarterback. I don't know that I agree with that. And I'll start with the players. I'll get to Goff later. I think what I've seen is there's something there with Derek Barnes that should blossom. He flashes, right? I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown, question answered. That's a great fourth round pick. I don't know anybody. He had 10 catches today for 86 yards and a touchdown. That is what you want. Quintez Cephas was playing well until he got hurt. I think that the short corner, Jerry Jacobs, I like him. I'm not saying he's a star. I'm saying he can be on the roster and you're going to get injuries. But if Melifonwu came back today and Jerry Jacobs still started and made plays, tackles for loss kind of plays, probably gave up something. I'm still hot and cold on Amani, though. The national media seems to love Amani. Other people seem to think Oruwariye is playing great, and I don't see it. I'm not saying he's playing horribly. It's okay. But I think if Okudah's healthy, Melifonwu's healthy, there's obviously help still needed there. But I like what I'm seeing. I like what I see from Jerry Jacobs. And then there's guys who we signed, like Charles Harris. Looks like a good signing. Looks like a really good signing. He played well today. I think he had 2 sacks today. So I'm seeing some of the stuff I wanted to see from the young players. I think Jefferson has some good moments. I think Penei Sewell is obviously, we know what Penei Sewell is, and we're fine with that. I think St. Brown was a great pick, obviously. So I think you're seeing some of the stuff, and I think the 2 defensive linemen are going to get better. And Barnes is going to be a starter at inside linebacker next year. I think I like what I'm seeing from the player standpoint. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of time on the coach because I'm not happy with the coach. I don't think it's normal to fire a coach after 1 year, but I think you can go back and see it. I remember the Packers did it to Ray Rhodes. I remember Schottenheimer got fired after a year. Guys have been fired after 1 year. Now if they end up, 2-14-1, I think you can justify it. But I think he could sit in that same meeting and say, look, man, I didn't have a go-to receiver, and Swift was hurt, and Goff's my quarterback. And he could say some things and say, okay, we're building something. Now, he got a 6-year deal. With him getting a 6-year deal, that suggests there weren't any real expectations. So it's kind of probably pipe dreamers to even talk about even a realistic possibility that Dan Campbell gets fired. He's not. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So let's not even waste a lot of time there. I think that I don't know what they do. He can't keep calling plays, though. He might call them the rest of the year. When asked that, he didn't walk away from the idea that he's calling plays the rest of the year. He doesn't seem to have any problem with that idea. So, I think next year you got to come in with a new play caller, because he clearly has some issue with what Anthony Lynn did in the first 8 games. And is it fair to give a guy 8 games with no big play receiver, with limitations at the quarterback position? Is it even fair to evaluate Anthony Lynn on 8 games? Right? I would like to be in the meeting where he sits down and says, this is why I'm taking over play calling duties. This is why, because I don't understand that. But today they played a clean game. They played a clean 3 quarters for sure. The Goff mistake came in the 4th. I think the Amani drop interception was in the 3rd. But if they would have played this clean against Baltimore or Minnesota the first time, they'd have won both of those games. If they'd have played clean against Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or Thanksgiving Day against the Bears, they win all 3 of those games. So this was the clean. And when I say clean, I mean, I think they had 2 penalties. I think they were both delayed games. I don't remember a PI call that extended a drive for the other team. I don't remember a lot of drops, like drops. There were catches that would have been tough catches that weren't made. I don't remember a lot of bad decisions outside the interception by Goff. So they executed on the field, the players, a relatively clean game. You know, like I said, outside of the big Goff mistake, they played a pretty clean game. And every podcast from other games, I came and talked about self-destruction, self-inflicted wounds, killing yourself, which is what they have been doing. They have been making mistakes that was causing them to lose games. Today, they really didn't do that. The biggest, hindsight wise, the biggest mistake is the 4th down from like your own 30 with 5 minutes left. You know, it almost cost them the game. I mean, it would have been a legitimate conversation about whether or not he should be fired had they lost that game based on that one decision. And then I would have added on top a heaping helping of crappy play calling, right? So I don't really know, where do you feel about coaching? I know how I feel about it. Some of it is costing them. I believe he single-handedly cost them 3 wins. And that's just me. So first part, player development, I'm happy with. I'd say I'm about a 9. The first year coach, completely unhappy. I'm about a 2. My feelings wouldn't be hurt if they fired him. I would be surprised because he has a 6-year contract. It means you'd be paying him a lot of money. But if you decide that's the right move, I don't know that should hold you back. I think it's important to understand that he does bring some good things. I don't see a lot. I mean, that character and developing a culture, all that stuff's really good. And maybe when the talent catches up, that will reap tremendous benefits. That the kneecap mentality and keep fighting and all that stuff. I don't know. So the third piece is Goff. And this is tough. It's not as easy as people think. And there are people who just think he sucks. And I'm open to hearing whatever you have to say. You can go to Twitter and I will pull up at Cornbread Pot. Yeah, I'm probably not going to read. I don't know. I'm going to do a social media thing. I might look at him. But my feeling is this. We have seen flashes from Goff, but we've also seen like that last drive today was impressive. That was some Matthew Stafford stuff, that last drive today. And I was impressed. I think it's important, though, that when you're doing any kind of evaluation, right, you got to baseline what we call the conditions. What are the conditions, right? If you were to say, I want to evaluate the weather in Michigan, and I'm just going to do it in January, well, that's not fair. We know what Michigan in January is like. That's not a real way to say, what's the weather like in Michigan? You'd have to do it in all conditions. If you are trying to decide whether or not you want to wear shorts or t-shirt or whatever you're trying to wear, you look at the weather and you think, but if it's in March, you know there's a chance of rain, right? So you need data. You need to be able to do this evaluation fairly. And the point I'm making here is, I don't know if it's fair to evaluate Jared Goff at all. I think you can take his worst play this year and say, he's a bum. I am related to a guy who tells me that every week. And it's fine. But I think that if you really go a couple levels deeper and you say, if guys aren't open, what's he supposed to do? Because the whole check down thing is my biggest problem with Goff. Goff is quick to the check down. He's quick. But if guys can't get open, what are his options? Throw in coverage? I will never advocate for that. He doesn't have skill. So think about the receiver position now. We see some improvements in St. Brown. We liked what we saw in Cephas before he went down. And now I'm thinking this Josh Reynolds guy brings something. What if you add a big-time receiver to that group? To that group. Not Brashard Perriman or Tyrell Williams. Not that. No disrespect to those guys. I mean, what if you could get a Justin Jefferson type? Now you have a true one. And you've got like Reynolds could be a solid 2, or Cephas could be a 2, or Brown could be. Now you got a different room. You could flip what we felt and still feel is probably the biggest weakness in terms of position group on the team and flip it into a strength. Now you can truly evaluate Goff. I think today you give him credit for using the tight end position, which he hadn't been doing. And you're missing DeAndre Swift, your leading receiver, by the way. So it goes back to not even about Jared Goff. It is an evaluation process. Is it a fair evaluation process? And if you think it's fair and you think you have enough data where you know for sure, see, the problem is when I get to the point where I'm about to make a statement like a competitive team can be led by Jared Goff, I don't know that I feel comfortable saying that. A team competing for a division title or an important playoff situation, do I want Jared Goff as my quarterback? To get there, obviously, you've acquired talent. You've acquired defensive talent. You've acquired more offensive talent. And maybe the question is, would better receivers lift Jared Goff? Or is Jared Goff just what he is? Would he pull down a good receiver? I should know 13 games in, 12 games in. I don't. What the guy I saw on that last drive, I think is clutch. I don't know if that's who he is. But the last 2 weeks, he's been stretching the field with Josh Reynolds, with TJ Hawkinson, with the rookie Wright. He's throwing the ball down the field. Even some of the passes to St. Brown and Khalif Raymond were down the field. So it goes back to Goff decision-making. The interception was horrific, for example. But the throw to Wright was great. He actually looked left, looked the safety off. And if you look at the replay, the safety took 2 steps left. And then he turned and immediately fired down the seam. If that safety doesn't take those 2 steps, he's in a position to intercept the football. That's good quarterback play, right? Is Jared Goff capable of doing that consistently? I don't know. Could he do it more consistently if he had better receivers? I don't know. That's the question. Goff is still a question mark. So wrapping up this segment, I love the player development piece. I think they're on their way. Brad Holmes has to bring in more players to be developed. I'm not happy with the coaching situation. I'm at about a 8 with player development. I'm at a 2 with the coach, and I'm a nice, robust, dead in the middle 5 on Jared Goff. I'm not sure. So I still think it's the same process. We still want to see the same things. So these last 4 games, yeah, they're 1-10-1. 4 games. I would like to see Goff get better. I'd like to see the rookies and young players get better. I'd like to see Dan Campbell get better. I'm still looking at the same things. I am, but I need to see him better. So, all right, let's do some social media, I guess. I feel like this is a horrible idea. I feel like I need to apologize in advance because I kind of know what's going to happen, but let's see. Let's grab a couple. All right, I'll grab the first one. Rob says, very happy for all of them. No quitters on the team. So there's 2 statements there, and I'm going to touch on both. Just as a human being, you should be happy for these guys, right? Set aside your fandom, whoever you are. When you just see anyone who has worked as hard as these guys have worked, and we've seen how they've come up short. They've been coming up short. They have come up short multiple times. For them to finally get this win, the way they got it, right? You had to be happy for them, right? Just forget about sports, forget about any of it. Just as a human being, to see someone else that happy Now, for me, yeah, I felt some happiness. I mean, I don't run from my investment in this team. The podcast is called what it's called for a reason. I love this team. I love watching this team. I love listening to things about this team. And I am never the guy who's like, oh, I hope they lose. Yeah, that ain't me. I don't have the capacity to do that. When they were driving, I thought it's improbable. There's no way they're going to move the ball all the way down the field with a minute 50. It would have been nice if they would have had a timeout, but dumbass blew them. So I want to, I was all over the place. But as they started to move the ball down the field, and shout out to Godwin Igwebuike. Man, I think I got it right. Igwebuike. Yeah, I think it's it. On a great play. Subtle, under the radar play during that drive where he caught a little crossing route, avoided being tackled in bounds, picked up, doesn't even matter what he picked up. He got out of bounds. It was a really, really heady play by a young player. And it was a difference maker. He probably saved them 10, 12 seconds. And that game might have been totally different. I think that, that play was heads up, but just watching sort of Goff drive down, I was feeling like, is this what's going to happen? But when you see that, right, you're happy for people. We can all agree that we can be happy as human beings for other human beings who achieve something they've worked really hard to achieve. The second part of Rob's comment, no quitters, that's a whole different deal for me. I don't get this idea of quitters, right? So here's my theory, and I'll be quick. No, I'm not going to be quick. I'm going to take all the time I need because I think it's important, right? The idea of quitters. So think about it this way. Think about all the high school players. There's really, really good high school players, high school football players. College is just the best of all of those guys, like the top guys. That's everybody in college. Everybody in college was a star at their high school. Every one of them. This is the best of the best the high schools in this country have to offer are playing college. And if you narrow that to like Division I, it doesn't have to be narrowed anywhere. Those are the best of the best. And take the same philosophy. All the great college football you see, all of these great college football players. The NFL, that's just the top level, the best of the best, the very best, the very best. So here's the deal. To get to that level, to be an NFL player, you can't have the capacity to quit. There are no quitters in the National Football League. I don't care how you feel about Jared Goff. I don't care how you feel about Matthew Stafford or anybody else. There is not a single quitter in the NFL. You don't make it to the NFL if you're a quitter. If you have the capacity to quit, you don't get that far. You never get that far. So the idea that they won today because they didn't quit is crap. They didn't quit against Minnesota the first time. They didn't quit against Baltimore. They didn't quit against Cleveland or Pittsburgh or the Bears. They didn't quit in Philly when they got their asses handed to them. They just got beat by a better team. What they did in those early games was they beat themselves with mistakes. That's not quitting. That's not. Pass interference is almost the opposite of quitting. It's trying too hard. The quitter. So I agree with Rob. Very happy for him. On a human being level, fine. I do not understand this quitter mentality. And I'm not shading anybody. My thought process is a simple one. You're not in NFL if you're a quitter. Whatever that quitter thing means. I don't even know what it means. I'm just saying, if you have the capacity to, okay, I'm facing adversity. Oh no, I give up. That dude has never played a down in the NFL in his life. Can't do that. You don't make it that far. You just don't. So I don't root for them because they're not quitters. They try hard. They work hard. I think they beat themselves. And those 5 or 6 losses I'm talking about, 4 or 5 losses, they deserved every one of them because they beat themselves or their coach beat them. And ultimately, if the coach keeps beating him, he'll probably get fired. At the end of the day, I don't know if I buy the quitter mentality. All right, I'm going to do another one. Oh, crap. Here they go. There's one. I don't like that one. Oh, there's another one right after it. All right, 3 straight. Okay, so I'm just going to combine these 3. I'm going to combine all 3 of these into one. So the first one is Zell. And I'm just going to be honest. I don't think I like Zell. And then there's Darren and Cliff, all variations of the same sentiment. And I can't go too hard because my brother said the same thing already. So Zell posts, now they went out and lose their position in the draft. I would like to say to you that I'm not going to jump down the rabbit hole and I won't take time, except that's not true. So if you don't like draft talk, if you don't like me getting frustrated by bad fans, this is the moment where you sign out the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully see you next week. Here is the problem. Tanking doesn't work. Tanking has never worked. Wherever you think you've seen this example of tanking working, it has never worked. 2 reasons. It's not possible. I just explained to you about the mentality of a player at the level of the National Football League. Players can't tank. Players can't tank. Tell a guy who's going out there trying to feed his family, whether he's a superstar who knows he's got as much time in the league as he wants, or a guy just trying to stay in the league and get another check. If you're going to sit that guy down and say, I'm going to need you to lose on purpose next week, I'm going to need you to not try so hard next week, then you do not get any of this. That is not possible for people at this level. All they've done since they were 11 or 12 years old is bust their ass to try and get here. And you, Mr. Fan, is going to say, I need you to get a better pick. Because what? You want me to get a better draft pick? So I'm supposed to potentially put my life at risk, playing at half speed or not doing stuff the way I'm supposed to, get hurt. That's idiotic. It's not possible is the first reason. Players can't tank. Organizationally, could they? Sure. Brad Holmes could come out and say, we're benching Goff. Is he hurt? Nah, we just want to get a look at David Blau. That's a tank. That's how you tank. And good luck explaining that to all those other dudes who are busting their ass, and now you are damaging their opportunity to win games, which is what they're there for. They're there to get better. They want to put together good tape. You think Hockenson doesn't want to put together good tape, or some guy whose contract is up? He's in a contract year. And you have just diminished his chances to win games, play better. They want to win. Players can't tank. And if organizations tank, you kill the culture. If Brad Holmes were to call Dan Campbell and say, I want to sit Swift. Well, Swift's a bad example because he got a real injury. Let's sit Taylor Decker, and we're not going to play Goff. We're not going to play Hockenson. Why? Just holding them out. Really? That's not going to work. First of all, the league ain't that stupid, and the league don't like tanking. Other players are not going to be happy about that. Those guys get paid. Let them come out here and do their jobs. That's the mentality there. The second reason is even better, and it probably is what really pisses me off. This idea, and I love my brother, don't get me wrong, but he said something to the effect of Jacksonville or the Jets might win games and they'll get Thibodeau. Because right now, on December 5th, we've decided there's only one good player in the whole NFL draft. And if you don't get Kayvon Thibodeau, you suck. There's no other good players. There's not going to be a good player at 4 or 7 or hell, 25 when we pick for the Rams, or 34, our early pick. That's absurd. That is absurd. There's so many good players in college. The idea that the guy at 1, because Peyton Manning's not in this draft, right? And the only exception to that rule is quarterback. And I've heard nothing that says the difference-making quarterbacks there. Is Kenny Pickett a good quarterback? Sure. The kid at Mississippi? Sure. Yeah, they might be. Nobody has said they're difference makers. They're can't miss, no doubt number ones. Nobody said that. Trevor Lawrence isn't in this draft. So what I'm saying to you is there is the job is scouting players, and the work is getting players in rounds 3, finding another Amon-Ra St. Brown like you did in the 4th round this year. Because the gaps in the draft, in my opinion, are like 1 to sometimes 7 or 8. Those are exceptional potential superstars. Somewhere around 8 to 15 really good players, particularly if they fit a niche for you. 15 to 30, not a big gap. 30 to 60, not a big gap. It's just about what do you want? What do you need? So this idea that if they don't have the number 1 pick, they messed up because they'll end up picking 3 and somebody else is going to get Thibodeau in. We're going to draft a bag of chicken livers. What? It's idiotic. The concept, not people. The concept makes no sense to me, right? There will be good players at 2. There will be good players to choose from at 3. At 5, the idea that we know right now, no pro days yet, no Senior Bowl, no combine. We don't even know who there's a tackle out of I don't know, Arizona or somewhere, maybe Alabama. We don't even know who the best player is. But right now, people have decided they're losing position in the draft because they can't get a good player at 4. The only good players at 1. They did the same thing last year when they were at 7. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you could have been at 5. Okay. Does that assume the player taken at 5 automatically is better than the player taken at 7? That's a bad assumption. I wouldn't do that. I would not do that. There's a lot of good players. Not only are they going to get a good player with their first pick, whether it's 1, 3, or 5, they're going to get a good player in the mid-20s from the Rams. They're going to get a good player in the mid-30s, their second-round pick. And if Brad Holmes is as good as he appears to be, they'll get good players later in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. That's how this works. Get over the idea of tanking because players can't tank. Get over the idea of losing draft position because there's plenty of good players in the draft. It's about taking the right players, not where. Doesn't matter. There's been a bunch of busts at number 1. DeMarcus Russell. DeMarcus? I think that was his name. That's my point. Number 1 quarterback, Raiders. I don't remember his name. Get over it. It is the job of the scouts and Brad Holmes to pick the right players. And yes, they could win 2 more games and they might get the 3rd pick. And that guy who can't yell 0-16-1 now is just going to bitch about that because that's what it really is. It is the thing that guy wants to bitch about now because that's what he loves to do. I think it's idiotic. And I just gave you legitimate logic, reason, thought processes, and it should change people's minds. And it will not, because I guarantee you, no matter what the top next week, the next time they win, when they win, if they win, I will be able to pull 10 posts of someone telling you they're messing up their draft position with a win. I don't have the capacity to do that. Cornbread and Kool-Aid is a lifestyle. I want them to win every game. I woke up this morning hoping they would win. I listened to pregame hoping they would win. I watched every minute of the game hoping they'd win. Even with my understanding of the process and how draft works, how salary cap works. I've read the CBA. I understand how team construction works. I have a really good idea of what Brad Holmes' task ahead of him is. Stafford's money coming off the cap, what they can do in free agency, how they can maneuver different contracts. What do you do about golf in that extra year? How much of that do you have to eat? Dead cap money. I'm a geek on all this shit. I am. The idea that you should lose games so that you can have a better draft pick by 1, 2, 3 spots is idiotic. It means you don't trust your scouts. You don't trust your GM. I don't even know what it means. I don't even know if it means that. I guess it means you think there's only 1 or 2 good players in the draft. And if you don't get one of those dudes, you suck. You don't think there's not going to be a good pass rusher in this draft not named Thibodeau? You don't think there's good receivers in this draft? You don't – what? This makes no sense. This makes no sense. Okay, all right, that's it. I'm going to do one more. Okay. That's fair. That's okay. Well, that's actually 2 of them. I like them both. So Daniel's the first one. This man has the unfortunate task of clearing up the mess of Quinn and Patricia left. Very happy for the coach. Okay, so he's fair, and I have to get some perspective myself. I've been hard on the coach for a month now. He is cleaning up a smoking, steaming hot mess. I cannot disagree with that. It is bad. And I am happy for him. I said very clearly, the man, the human being, Dan Campbell, I'm happy. That dude works really hard. And I'm happy for him, right? And it's a good thing. As a human being, I'm down for that. He did have a mess. But there's another one from Margie who says, awesome. A win is a win. I'll take it, even if it's just 1. So the middle of her statement is a win's a win. If you don't root for your team to win, are you really a fan? If you're that dude who just wants to bitch about them, and you're going to bitch about them not winning games, and then when they win, you're going to bitch about them messing up draft picks, are you really a fan? What kind of person are you? What do you want? I know who I am. I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum of that guy, which is why I rail on him so much, which is why I don't like those guys. I want them to win every game. I am optimistic about the future of this football team. When people ask me, why do you do a podcast about I get that. What? Why? Because one day, finish the rest of it yourself, right? One day, and I believe that. I don't make that up. I don't drink. I'm not inebriated right now. I don't do drugs. I'm not intoxicated anyway. I believe that. I believe that one day it'll happen. And I'm okay with the dudes who are going to call in the sports talk radio tomorrow and laugh and make their jokes. They have their own little group, their own little club, bitch about it no matter what, get somebody fired no matter what. Those are just sports talk radio guys. That's what they do. Those guys call in the sports talk radio. They keep and the hosts of sports talk radio know that, and they cater to those idiots. And they're not idiots. I don't agree with their perspective. I love the team. I'm sorry. And this is not about happy about a win, because I had a lot of bad things I talked about today. I still believe they're going in the right direction, and it just takes time. But the next move is Brad Holmes. How does he utilize? Think about the 3 picks. Our first, Rams first, our second. That's 3 of the top 33, 34 players. You can add some really good players there. And with Stafford's money coming off the cap, you can utilize free agency. They're not a 1-10-1 football team. Anybody who's watched every game like me knows that. Truthfully, they should have 5 wins. And that might be a good thing that they don't, because apparently there's only a couple good players in the draft. So you got to be in the top 3. I'm not doing that. I can't keep doing that, but they will get good players. Those 3 picks will be contributors next year, and they'll be really, really important pieces for the foreseeable. I'm with Margie. A win's a win. I enjoyed today's game. I like the way they won. I like that they got the win, and I'll take it. I'm going to finish off with Margie's words. I'll take it, even if it's just 1. If they end up 115-1, fine. Then let's build and keep going, and we'll be better next year. So, all right. Speaking from someone who produced his podcast today, like Dan Campbell coached. This is the second one. I hope you guys heard it all, because I just went through another 50 minutes without even checking the mic. No, I checked the mic. I'm kidding. I think you guys heard it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I need you to help me out. Give me a review. Give me a rating. Do something to let somebody else know that you like it. And if you don't, that's cool. Just keep listening. You can go to Cornbread Pod and talk crap, but just keep listening, because I'm going to keep doing it. So you don't have to listen. I'm going to do it anyway. But thanks again to my brother for being a producer today. Mr. Super Producer, Mike Ward. I'm going to need you to get back, buddy, because I don't know what I'm doing. Hope you enjoyed it, and everybody have a good night. Prayers to everybody in Oxford, Michigan. Thinking about you, and everybody have a good one, and we'll see you next week.